Recently, I got my metabolic rate tested, and I was shocked by the results. Let me tell you about what happened and why you might not be burning as many calories as you think you are. In the past, I've estimated my daily calorie needs based on standard equations that take into account things like your weight, your height, and your age. This is how all online calculators work. You put in some variables and the equation gives you an estimate. I'm gonna repeat that, an estimate. But what many people don't realize is that these online calculators can actually be pretty inaccurate. They can be a good starting point for how many calories you eat, but they're not very precise. I love collecting data about my health, and I got pretty curious about exactly how many calories I was burning each day. So I went to a local gym by my friend Phil Wallen called Diesel Optimization, and I got a metabolic test done. The test measures the amount of oxygen you take in and the amount of carbon dioxide you breathe out. And from there, it gives you a more accurate measurement of your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. Now, your BMR is how many calories your body burns when it's at rest, just to maintain all its basic functions like your lungs, breathing, your heart beating, and your brain functioning. Now, here's what I was surprised. Well, it turns out my daily calorie needs to maintain my weight were almost 200 calories lower than what the equations were telling me. I know for many people it's not feasible to go out there and get a specialized test to determine how many calories you're burning, and I'm not recommending you to do that. So how can you determine then the number of calories you should be eating for fat loss? That's exactly what I'm going to be explaining in this video. So make sure you keep watching. Hey everyone, it's Andres here, and I'm back with another video to help you simplify weight loss using proven methods and strategies that I have tested and refined over my 12 years as a registered dietitian. If you're looking to lose weight using a sustainable science-based approach, hit follow because I release a new video every single week. Now today's video is answering one critical question that most people have when it comes down to weight loss, and that is, how much should I be eating, particularly from the calorie standpoint? So let's break this one down. When we talk about how much we eat, the unit of measurement that we use is calories. Calories are essentially a unit of energy. When we talk about calories in the context of food and nutrition, we're actually referring to kilocalories or kcals. However, in everyday language, we just typically shorten that to just calories. For example, when a food label states that a serving of food contains 200 calories, it really means 200 kilocalories. Now, to give you a more scientific definition, a kilocalorie is the amount of energy needed to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So even though calories are sometimes treated like the enemy when it comes down to weight loss, they're not anything we really need to be scared of. They're just a unit of measurement. When we eat food, our bodies break it down and convert it into energy in the form of ATP. And this is actually what we use to fuel everything that we do. So you can think about calories like the fuel that power our bodies, similar to how gasoline powers a car. When you eat more calories than your body needs for its daily activities, what do you think is going to happen to the excess? It's going to be stored as fat. On the other hand, when you consume fewer calories than your body requires, it basically starts to use stored fat for energy, leading to fat loss. Now, this is the basic principle behind weight loss, creating a calorie deficit by eating fewer calories and or increasing physical activity. When your goal is weight loss, it's helpful to understand how your body uses calories, and this can be broken down into 4 categories. Category number 1 is your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. BMR is the number of calories your body needs to maintain basic physiological functions while at rest. For example, breathing, circulating blood, your heart pumping, cell production. Now, your BMR accounts for about 60 to 75% of the total energy you burn each day, also known as your total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. Now, BMR is that number that I told you was lower for me than when I expected. The second piece is the thermic effect of food, or TEF. TEF refers to the number of calories your body uses to digest, absorb, and metabolize food. It typically accounts for about 10% of your TDEE. Now, different macronutrients have different thermic effects. For example, protein has a bit of a higher TEF compared to fats and carbohydrates. Then you have non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. NEAT includes all the calories you burn through daily activities that are not formal exercise. Think about this like, the fidgeting of your hands, like I'm moving them right now, walking, typing, cleaning. Now, NEAT varies a ton between individuals, and it can really have a major impact on TDEE. And then we have what you typically expect that burns more calories is exercise activity thermogenesis, or EAT. And it refers to the calories burned doing anything you might consider consider structured exercise or physical activity. That could be running, swimming, going to the gym, doing CrossFit, going to group classes, and other things along those lines. So from here, you can probably already see why estimating your calories using a calculator can be extremely difficult. There are so many factors that contribute to your calories burn, and they're constantly changing. First, we have BMR, and that's calculated from an equation or from something called indirect calorimetry, which is what they did on me in the test that they use. This might stay relatively consistent each day, but there will be some changes, and your BMR can change based on things like your body size, your muscle mass, your medical conditions you may have, hormonal factors. Now, for example, women who menstruate burn more calories in the luteal phase, which is the last phase, which is the phase right before their period. Another way your resting metabolic rate changes, regardless if you're a man or a woman, is by increasing muscle mass, which leads to increases in BMR. Your body needs more energy to preserve and maintain a metabolically active tissue like muscle. Now, this increases really differ a lot between individuals, but it is often between 100 to 300 calories per day. Now, the thermic effect of food may also stay relatively consistent if you're eating similar meals each day, but need and eat could vary quite a bit, depending on whether you're going to the gym that day or how much walking you're doing. Basically, the point I want to make here is that even if a calorie calculator tells you that you should eat 2,000 calories a day, that number is not a hard and fast rule, and it's not an exact measure of your everyday calorie burn because it changes. Instead, you should use calorie calculators as a place to start, and from there you can assess your nutrition and your body metrics to see if you're making progress towards the goals that you want. For example, maybe a calorie calculator tells you the amount of calories you need to have to maintain your weight are 2,300 calories or 2,300 calories. So you decide to aim for a deficit of 300 calories, and you start tracking your calories in like apps like maybe Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, aiming for 2,000 calories each day. From there, what you would do is you would assess how you're feeling and what changes you are actually seeing when you start implementing these changes. Let's say that you do that for a few weeks and you're very consistent and you're not seeing any changes. I'm gonna emphasize a point here. Be consistent, because a lot of times like people think that they're being consistent, but they're not. Let's say you're not feeling better in your body. The scale hasn't changed and you haven't really had any type of reductions in your body measurements. What that could mean is that your actual calories for maintenance are lower than the calculator originally estimated, and you've really been eating around your maintenance calories. From there, you can decrease your calories slightly and see if that results in any changes. This will be my case, for example. For me, if I'm going to base things on a calculator, I will need to consume 2,500 to 3,000 calories daily for maintenance. But now that I know my BMR as calculated by this machine, the numbers are going to be more along the lines of 2,200 to 2,500 calories. On the other hand, maybe you start having about 2,000 calories and you find that you're dropping weight pretty fast and you're feeling hungry all the time. In that case, maybe your maintenance may be higher than your calculator estimated, and you may need to bump up your calories up a bit so you can achieve more sustainable results without the constant hunger. As you can see, this is a very dynamic process, and you may need a lot of trial and error to get it right. Tracking your food intake, monitoring your weight, or other body changes, and making gradual adjustments can help you find a more accurate and a personalized calorie target for you. Now, one last nutrition auditing scenario I want to mention here is that what if you're eating in a calorie deficit for weight loss based on your results of the calculator, but you're not losing weight, and on top of that, you're also feeling pretty hungry all the time? If you find yourself in this scenario, that's when it's important to take a look at the specifics of what you're eating each day, because it's possible that maybe you're eating too many calories for fat loss while not eating the right kinds of foods to feel full and satisfied. And typically what needs to happen in this situation is you need to make some changes in the quality of the meals you're eating to incorporate things like protein and fiber, which will help a little bit more satiety. I tell this to everyone. Hunger is one of the hardest things to fight, because you're going to do what your body's going to do, and you're going to see certain foods and certain things that are going to be attractive in that moment, and you're going to forget about them, and then you overconsume calories, and that happens all the time. Now I want to go back to my metabolic test for a second so I can tell you about it. I mentioned before that when I went to get this testing done to see how many calories I was burning daily, I was surprised to find that I was burning less than what I was expecting based on calorie calculators that I have used in the past. Now the question here is, why were my calories lower? I'm also going to show you something that I typically use to track my calories on a daily basis. Now to explain this, I need to tell you what indirect calorimetry is, or need to tell you about the technology of the test that I got done. Indirect calorimetry works by measuring the exchange of gases in your body. There's two of them, oxygen and CO2 or carbon dioxide. Okay, let's get a little bit deeper. During metabolism, carbs, fats, and proteins, which are known as your macronutrients, are used as fuel for energy. Now, these macronutrients are catabolized, which is another word to describe like they're broken down, for energy in the presence of inspire oxygen. Your body needs air, and it's converted into CO2 or carbon dioxide, water, and heat as a byproduct. This is known as substrate oxidation. Now, depending on the composition of macronutrients, the volume of oxygen, CO2, and the energy liberated from that process varies from person to person and from day to day, and so many other different factors. In this test, it is assumed that the oxygen that I was breathing in is used to metabolize fuels, and the CO2 is the byproduct of that, and that is what the machine it's actually reading. Now, why were my numbers lower? Well, first, calorie predictive equations were created based on something called regression models. Thousands of people were put in that same machine, and they measure exactly the same thing that they measured on me, and what they did is they graphed the results, and then I'm sure there's going to be people like from all different ages and groups and ethnicities and all those different things like that, and they create a predictive equation from it. Those are the things you're going to find in calorie calculators. Now, my numbers were lower simply because of the fact that predictive equations are not exact. They're just an estimate. And then for me specifically, it could mean maybe that my body requires little oxygen and therefore energy maybe to function properly at rest or something different. Now, does this mean that I have a slow metabolism? Not necessarily, but it means that my calorie requirements are not what my calculator was actually giving me. Now, I love to see numbers and tech and stuff like that, so I use an actual heart rate monitor and technology called Whoop. I have it right here in my arm. Now, this is not a sponsored video. I honestly been paying for this thing for like 6 years. Now, what this is a heart rate monitor and a sensor that tracks my heart rate. And heart rate can also be used to estimate your calories burned or the amount of calories you're using on a daily basis. And it's calculated based on the heart rate data. Now, some data shows that heart rate and energy expenditure are linear, but there's a lot of margin of error. So this is why I tell people that just looking at how many calories your Apple Watch is burning or your Whoop or your Fitbit or whatever you're using is burning is not 100% accurate. There's a big margin of error. Now, what I do with my own data is I monitor not only this, but I monitor how many calories I consume by tracking my calories consistently. And then I also look up my weight fluctuations and compare it to my expenditure. Let me show you. Here's a graph from Chronometer, which is an app that I like to use and we use with our clients, that shows that my calorie consumption over the past 3 days was about 2,200 calories. Then on this one other graph, you're gonna see from my Whoop data that my calorie expenditure, what it was estimated, was around 2,369 calories in average. Now, my weight remained the same around those days because I measured it. What's really cool and interesting here is that the calorie discrepancy is very, very similar to the differences that I saw in my measure test versus my predicted equation. Now, I'm not saying that you need to do all of this, but the more you get an understanding of your data, the better control you have over what happens to your goals. That's just my philosophy. Now, the question is, and this is what we're gonna do to finish, simple 3-step process that will take you about 3 to 5 days to complete to determine something more specific to use. We will use weight loss as a goal because that's what most people who come to me typically want to accomplish. The step 1 is you need to determine your calorie targets for maintenance. You can either use one of these calculators online. I like this one by Precision Nutrition, or you can use simple math and you can multiply your weight times 14. This will be your total calories needed or estimated for maintenance. The step number 2 is you would subtract anywhere between 300 to 500 calories from that previous number. Now you can start to track your calories accurately using Chronometer or a similar app. And I recommend that you be as precise as possible and you try to add as much as you can over the course of, 7 days, 14 days or so. And at the same time, I want you to make sure you're tracking your weight on a daily basis. At this point, I recommend you evaluate both your weight and your calories consumed and ask yourself questions. What happens? Did your weight go up as a trend? Did it stay the same? Did it go down? I said the trend because I want to make sure you're looking at trends, not just single digits. If you lost some weight or saw a trend down, then you're at a proper calorie deficit. So you need to just simply keep it going. If you did not lose any weight or even gain, perhaps, you need to lower your calories from the number that you got. I understand that this process isn't always easy and it's not a perfect science. And also, we're not robots or machines. We make mistakes and we're not consistent in certain things, and life is just life. This requires a lot of consistency. Calorie consumption and expenditure is also pretty hard. Some people don't like to track calories and they don't like to track their macros, and that's okay. This is not for everyone. And it can be confusing to navigate on your own, especially with a lot of the trial and error, along with the skills and the knowledge that you need to have to track effectively. If you're struggling with your weight, I always tell people that you need to develop the skills to become the person that can lose it and keep it off. Now, you've been losing and gaining the same 20 pounds for years, if that's you, and you're looking for a new approach, I created a free training that breaks down the 3-step process that busy dads like myself are using to lose 20 to 30 pounds in as little as 12 to 16 weeks. But the best part of it is that they keep the weight off for good because it developed the skills and the knowledge to be able to do this in the long term. If you want to get access to that training for free and discover a new, more effective approach to reach your goals, check out the description for the link and I'm going to send that training right over to you. But that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope that this helped you gain some insight into how much you should be eating if you're trying to lose weight and what you need to be aware of when you're using online calculators. Now, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit subscribe right now so you don't miss out on any of my future videos, and I'll see you again in a new one next week. Bye for now. See you soon.